My name is Kevin Fahey. I'm the PEO for Combat Support, Combat Service Support. I want to talk to you today about a very serious, widespread problem, and that is suicide, suicide prevention, and suicide awareness. You personally can make a difference and help either a coworker, a friend, or even a family member if you have awareness of suicide and suicide prevention. As you probably know, suicide prevention is a serious problem for the United States. In fact, over 3,000 Americans die yearly from suicide, and a significant amount of other people actually attempt to take their lives, and that number is actually not known. As you probably know, since you work here and you work with soldiers every day, that the Army life can be and is a very stressful life, not only for the soldier, but for us civilians that support the soldier, because in many instances we work as hard as possible because we know the work we do can save someone else's lives, and so it is a very stressful situation. You all need to understand and be aware of suicide and suicide prevention and be willing to help folks that are in difficult times. It is our duties, and especially as leaders, to be aware of the programs and be aware of the problems and publicize suicide and suicide prevention and make available to the workforce the training to help others and the training to help those that are in stressful times. I think some of you may have known is that a major in my organization a short while ago took his life to suicide. It was a very difficult situation for my organization. It was also a very difficult situation of reviewing that situation and doing an after-action review to see if there's anything we could have done better or learned from that event. You know, it's very difficult, and what I would tell you in the review, and I'll go through some of the details of it, is we did find the things that you learned during training, a lot of the risk factors that were identified to look for and try to understand were in fact there, and many of his co-workers and family members were concerned, but nobody really took the time to put the pieces together. Let me tell you the story. I had a 36-year-old major who was married with 2 sons and a daughter. He was having marital problems, and because of those marital problems was having financial challenges. Shortly after returning from Afghanistan, this major and his wife began experiencing problems. His wife filed for divorce, and right before he took his life, they got into a major fight, and the fight led to discussion about him seeing his children, and that's when he took his life. The major was described as a friendly individual who basically talked to everybody. He mentioned his problems to several people, but for the most part, he did not go through the whole story of all his problems with many individuals, but just pieces of his problems with those. There was no indication of substance abuse, either alcohol or drugs, but the significant observations were, you know, this major was described, as I said earlier, as outgoing, friendly, so he would talk to anybody, and as a result, it was not surprising to many of his co-workers and acquaintances of the issues that were going on in his life. There were numerous risk factors and key indicators, as I talked about, that you do learn when you go through suicide prevention training. He did have family issues at home, mainly with his wives, and struggles over, you know, probably the thing that distressed him the most is will his divorce affect his ability to see his children, who he loved very much. He also had financial issues, a lot of it resulting from the pending divorce and the fact that now he had to maintain a second household. You know, so as you know, living in this area, you know, his maintaining a second house at the same time his primary house was losing its value, and you know, he had the typical things, car loans and credit cards and those types of things. Also had student loans, so he did have some financial challenges. The other thing that, you know, when we look through the history, which we don't really ask these questions a lot, is this officer had been deployed 3 times during his military career, the first one being the most stressful. He had been deployed to Bosnia as his first deployment. His second one was to Kuwait in Iraq, and his third deployment was right before his death, and that was to Afghanistan. Bosnia was the one deployment that there was evidence of a significant emotional impact to his life. The major could not get that off his mind. He was obsessed with that experience, and it was pretty. He was a young tank platoon leader. And he talked a lot about, the missions he had, hunting mines and different vehicles. He was always upset and dismayed when he would talk about it. It was really about, seeing buildings that were bullet riddled and, people that were executed in masses. He was disturbed to the point that he went as far as sending pictures to folks in the buildings and talking about those events. He talked about the mass graves he found, seeing the bodies, uncovering them, and being preoccupied by the fact that everywhere he went was the smell of death. And so there was really evidence that was a long-lasting traumatic experience that he had. There was no indication that his deployments to Kuwait or Afghanistan had any traumatic stress, but the first one obviously would be really traumatic to any of us. So I think you see that there were basically several risk factors. One is his traumatic experience in Bosnia, the other being his divorce and financial issues. And I'll tell you, the leaders, to the most part, had asked the questions, and he assured everybody that he wasn't a risk factor. Mainly the reason that most leaders believed this young officer was because of his love for his children, is that their belief that he would not harm himself because as a result, obviously he would have a significant emotional impact on his children. But at the end, when he took his life, was when he got in an argument with his wife, and the threat that was you wouldn't see your children, then that basically, a reaction to that is when he took his life. Like I said, we're in very stressful times, and we need to support each other and be helpful, which will make the difference in a family member, a friend, co-worker, a neighbor at the times of trouble. Thank you for listening, and I hope this will help you or help you help someone else.
September is Suicide Prevention Month, an observance of the Army's theme, "A healthy force is a ready force." A mandatory stand-down at the Detroit Arsenal will be in effect from 0900 to 1600, 27 September and 3 October 2012. During this time, employees are encouraged to physically attend or view activities related to suicide prevention within the active duty ranks and civilian workforce who supports them. Remember, you make a difference and pass it on. Small seeds of hope or a sense of effectiveness and belonging can grow to form the threads that sustain us through tough times.